Hello, Internet. Welcome back. I'm not even sure why some of you are still watching, but I understand why a lot of you still are. Today on Eric's Corner, we are going to discuss the used vehicle market. Now, why is my opinion matter on this? Well, I'm a car guy. I eat, live, and breathe cars. If I couldn't work on cars or didn't have the mechanical inclination that I do, I would literally have no marketable job skills. So I'm very fortunate that it's something that actually pays very well. So, diving right into it, I see people blue booking vehicles and say, hey, here's what it's worth. Well, I also see people blue booking something as it's from a dealer. Well, here's why dealer and private party are different. A dealer often changes all the fluids, they'll put new tires on it, make it safer to drive or more attractive to sell. New brakes, so on and so forth, and often will offer a 90 to a 180-day warranty. Those things make it more valuable from a dealer. So when somebody's blue booking, they need to blue book correctly. Saw one guy put his '03 Ram that had been crashed in the front end with 32,000 miles on it. Oh, well, that's what the engine has on it. Yeah, but the chassis has 200,000 on it and it's 20 years old. Where are you getting this $8,000 value? And he thinks he's giving it away for, I think, $6,500. Oh, I'm giving it away for that. It's worth 10. Like, no, it cost like 15 brand new 20 years ago. I can give you lots of examples of stuff like this. And we had a 30-year-old 93 two-wheel drive Tacoma with 380,000 miles on it. They were asking $9,500. Like, you are just not even in the ballpark. That truck is literally worth $500 only because it runs. Vehicles typically, and I'm talking about an average, and I can already hear you guys banging on your keyboards trying to discredit me and saying I'm wrong and that's not right and so on and so forth. Vehicles typically, on average, have about 250,000-mile lifespan before the engine or transmission go. Why do I cite those two things? Well, because those are catastrophic failures of the two biggest components in every vehicle on the planet, I think. So, yes, of course, some of you are going, oh, well, I've got this rig that's got 400,000 miles on it. Okay, yes, they exist. I'm not arguing that. They also have blown up at 90,000 miles. Stay with me, stay on track here. So in the average market, the average environment, the average owner who takes average care of something, doesn't have a garage, doesn't watch it every day, etc., they're going to go about 250,000 miles. So when you have a vehicle that's wrecked and you think, oh, it's got a lot of great parts on it, it's still worth $5,000. Well, no, because a newer vehicle, they got to get wrecked pretty hard before they're salvaged out, obviously, because it's a percentage issue. It's got to be 40% of what the car is worth, so on and so forth. Or I'm pretty sure it's 40%. Versus an older vehicle that has a lot more miles on it. It doesn't take much, a little fender bender. The insurance company is just going to say, hey, total it out. It's like, well, okay. A newer vehicle with low mileage to total it out, when it gets impacted really hard or rolls, you traumatize the internal components of that vehicle. The engine and transmission, again, mostly. You slam those parts together in a bad wreck. I don't care if it's low mileage. It just simply, to me, is not worth swapping over to another vehicle. And also, in a higher mileage vehicle, 20 years old, let's say, it doesn't take much, only a fender bender. Okay, but now you have a 200,000 mile engine you're pulling out to put in another vehicle. That is not worth your time. And it really seems to me like anytime you remove an OEM part that's original equipment manufactured and you marry it to a new transmission or engine or vice versa, they just don't seem to hold up. Whenever you have those factory, from the dealer, from the factory components, they just seem to last better. anytime you start flip-flopping some of these major components, they just don't seem to have the reliability that they did from the factory. Now, I'm not saying that makes them garbage. I'm saying that lessens the curb appeal, at least to me. So, and I'm gonna touch on this other subject real quick. That's a whole nother video. But when they talk about electronic vehicles, oh, well, they'll last 100 years. Well, do they not rust? And again, they still have these major components, the battery mostly, that are going to cost more to replace in 25 years, let's say, than the vehicle's worth. See, again, when you're talking about these vehicles that are 25 to 30 years old, that, oh, it's in really good shape. Oh, okay, yes, granted, it's not a collector's item. And again, get off your keyboard for a second, hear me out. Things like a Bronco, a two-door Blazer, we're starting to see what's becoming collectible. Okay, cool. The world is full of collectible cars that are not worth anything because it rusted out Mustangs, Camaros, Trans Ams, Firebirds, Dodge Darts, the Charger, the Challenger. There's tons of those all over, but they're not worth fixing. It'd cost you $400,000 to fix up a car that's worth $30,000 when you're done. That's not what I'm talking about. We do have some vehicles that are starting to surface as collectible. Again, using the Bronco as an example. If you have one with 20,000 miles on it in immaculate off the showroom floor condition, it is absolutely worth the $20,000 it cost brand new back in '93. Again, that's not what I'm talking about. Why are we getting all these rusted out pile of crap videos, vehicles that people still think were worth $1,000 10 years ago, and now are being asked $8,000 for it? And, you know, I personally don't really give a shit. I'm not the one getting ripped off, but here's the problem, is you're going to bring that vehicle to me. Let's say you paid 15 grand for a 93 quarter-million mile having a Silverado, let's say. And you bring it to me because the engine blew up because it only had a few thousand miles left on it, and you say, well, I still owe $8,000 on it. And I'm going to go, well, you do realize after I put a new engine in this thing, which would cost you $5,000 to have a shop do, again, doing it myself, it's cheaper, but again, don't quote me on this. I did not look up exact numbers, and don't tell me a Toyota costs more or whatever. Stay with me. Say it's going to cost $5,000 to have them replace it, and they say, well, I'll just sell you the whole vehicle for $8,000. That's what I owe on it. I'm going to go, no, because I can sell it for about $4,000 after I replace the engine. Oh, you're trying to rip me off. So, no, I'm not absorbing your bad financial decision when you bought this pile of crap for 3 times what it was worth, you know, a couple years ago. So they're going to have to take it to a dealership because they're going to have to roll that negative equity on top of another loan. I mean, I'll explain that if you want me to, but not going to go into it right now. So, and then that's going to make your payment a lot more on this other vehicle. I mean, okay, cool, that's fine. But that's going to cause a crisis down the line when we have all these vehicles rolling around. You know, you go to sell it in 5 years and you say, hey, I owe this amount of money on it. And it's still not going to be worth that. We've got a really bad snowball effect happening here, and I'm calling it now. So stop buying vehicles, okay? We don't have a shortage of them. There's plenty of them. You know, one of the first ones I saw, again, was an 88 Bronco, rusted to crap, and they wanted $7,000 for it. It had 250,000 miles on it. Again, up here in Alaska, vehicles don't last. They get rusted out. You have to take really good care of them to get the body to hold up. And I'm like, is this a misprint? Well, no, we can work with you, but no, it's not a misprint. Like, when I was in high school, that rig was worth $4,000, and that was 20 years ago, 20 years less of rust, and so on and so forth. So, so the used vehicle market has just completely lost its mind. I don't know what's going on here, or why all these things got, people got these ideas that their car is worth all this money, and I don't know who on earth is buying them. Oh, okay, good. I'm glad I remembered this because I wanted to go into Kelley Blue Book and NADA. So the bank is going to blue book your car, and they are going to say, hey, let's just say a 2000 7.3 Power Stroke. Say the rig is in immaculate condition, has 250,000 miles on it. Okay, with that truck comes some nostalgia. People love those engines. Cool. To me, they're outdated. We'll circle back to that. The bank goes, hey, this thing books at 12 grand. Why are we going to loan you 30,000 on it? Again, that's too high a risk, because if you wreck it, the insurance company isn't going to give you that 30 grand, and then you're going to be 15 grand flipped on it. So how the banks are even loaning on it, I don't know, which is very confusing to me. And again, with Kelley Blue Book and NADA, I already discussed how they have private party versus dealership. Dealership's going to be higher. Well, first of all, the dealers own those two websites. Why do you think you can buy a car through them? So they're going to inflate their dealer price. They're going to do a little bit more realistic private party price. So when they say, hey, here's trade-in, you say, oh, okay, well, 10,000 to sell myself, 8,000 trade-in, so only a couple of grand final traded in, versus saying, oh, here's what it's worth, and then, oh, here's trade-in. They kind of give you a middle ground, and I think that's what they're doing, because, I mean, I kind of don't trust them either, and we already touched on making sure when somebody shows you Blue Book that they Blue Booked it correctly. So I'll Blue Book something. It's like, oh, it's worth 10 grand. Why did you Blue Book and it's worth 20? Well, they're finagling some numbers. So, gonna circle back to, you know, like the mid late 90s diesels, great engines, the Cummins and the Ford Power Stroke, or the International Power Stroke rather, great engines. Cool, that's fine. But the 2012, I think, is when the twin turbo EcoBoost V6 came out, and it has the same towing capacity. 26 miles to the gallon. It's badass. My dad has a 20. He loves it. His neighbor bought one. He loves it. I mean, and all the newer half tons, 15 years newer, all have a higher towing capacity. Now, again, relax on your keyboard. I am very well aware, again, car guy, I know a turbocharged diesel will still tow better than a gas half-ton truck. I'm aware of that. But how much are you towing? Nothing. Y'all are just driving these big diesel trucks because of the status of it, which is fine. That's where you want to spend your money. That's fine. Do it. I commend you for spending your paychecks the way you want to. That's fine. But don't try and convince me it makes sense, because it doesn't. I pulled my dad's, it was 10,000 pounds, his skid steer. It's out there in the shop. With the trailer, weighed 10,000 pounds. It did 65 miles an hour up the biggest hill in the entire state that you're going to drive up. I mean, of course, you know, I was burning juice like a Humvee, and the speed limit's 45. I was able to do 20 over that just to see if I could. You know, it towed just fine. This takes a little more RPMs. So again, to me, the diesels are completely outdated. Those late 90s diesels. But I mean, again, a real cream puff, something that's in really good shape, fine, drive it. They drive like a tank. I hate them. I had an F450. It drove like a bulldozer. And again, I couldn't justify owning it anymore, so I got rid of it. So the used vehicle market, bear in mind, these things are they have a life, and after 25 to 30 years, your engine and transmission simply are not going to be with you anymore. So when you overpay, you know, you have a $5,000 vehicle you paid $10,000 for, and then you have to put a $5,000 engine swap into it. Now you got 15 grand into this thing, and well, do you sell it and cut your losses, or do you gamble that maybe the transmission will last another 5,000 miles and I get my money's worth out of it? Because you put that kind of money into it, if you can drive it, you average it out, and it makes it a little more affordable. So anyway, I think I pretty much covered everything on used vehicles, and I will throw out another video on electric vehicles, and I'm going to touch on the same thing about, well, there's only so much time that the vehicle is worth fixing, where it doesn't make sense. That's why there's graveyards full of government-issued electric vehicles, full of these cars, a few years old because it's cheaper. It makes more sense to just buy a brand new one than replace the battery. And I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. Have you seen the lithium mines and cobalt mines in Africa and the children mining them? No? No, you don't give a shit? No, of course you're not, because they're all liberal and open-minded and, oh, this is so wonderful in the way of the future because it doesn't affect you, or when it does help you, it's fine. That would be a humanitarian disaster, and we would be liberating those people if it didn't benefit us. Now, granted, call me a hypocrite because the batteries on my power tools use lithium batteries. But I mean, I don't know what to tell you. The batteries in my power tools are insignificant to needing batteries for your cars that weigh thousands of pounds. And also all the, okay, I'm ranting. Okay, I got to change subjects and get a whole new video because I'm going to talk about how I think we need to go gas or diesel electric in cars and bridge the gap, all that good stuff. So anyway, enjoyed my video? Great. If not, why are you still here? We'll talk some more about things. Go ahead, freak out in the comments and tell me what I missed, where I'm wrong, do some research and tell me where I could do better, so on and so forth. But thank you for joining me on Eric's Corner. Have a good night.